They handed his brother the legendary sword, the SSS blade every family in the valley would have killed to own, and they left him the broken half, still smoking on the anvil, not even worth sweeping up. He knelt alone in the cold forge after everyone had gone, the broken blade in his hands, its edge cracked and dull. His own family had looked at him and decided he was worth less than a scrap of metal. So when his brother's friend came to test the new champion and swung a full flame strike at the worthless heir just to watch him flinch, he did not move. He did not dodge. He let the fire hit the broken blade, and he smiled, because only he knew what the broken blade did. Every technique used against it, it did not block, it drank, it remembered, it reforged itself one rank higher, the enemy's own move now living inside its edge. The flame strike meant to humiliate him sank into the metal, and the cracked blade glowed, retempered F rank to E right there in front of the crowd. And something answered. From deep inside the reforging metal, a small creature uncurled, a forge-born beast, no bigger than a kitten, made of ember and warm iron, blinking up at him for the very first time. It had been sleeping in the blade all along. As the blade climbed, it would grow. He called it Ember. The champion's own signature move now belonged to the boy they threw away, and that was only the first. 6 masters ruled the region, and each one guarded a single legendary technique. 6 techniques to steal, 1 strike at a time, 6 ranks to climb, FEDCBA, before the broken blade could be reforged all the way to SSS, and the little beast beside him became a legend. But the moment the guild understood what the blade really was, they would come to take it back. 6 masters, 6 techniques, less. 1 broken blade to reforge from scrap to SSS, and 1 small beast to raise into a legend, before the guild came to reclaim it. I stood there in the ring of watching faces, and I did not run. The heat was still crawling up the metal in my hands. A moment ago, the flame duelist had grinned at me. Now he was staring at his own palms like they belonged to a stranger. The crowd had gone quiet the way a crowd goes quiet when it has seen something it cannot file away. Somewhere in the tiers, a man dropped his cup. It rolled, and no one bent to pick it up. I closed my hand around the blade. It was warm now, not with forge heat, but with its own life. The edge that had been dull an hour ago caught the low sun and threw a clean line of light. My brother's friend found his voice. That's my technique. In your blade. It is, I said. My voice came out lower than I meant it to. Thank you. He flinched harder at that than he would have at a fist. I did not stay to explain. Explaining was the one thing I would never do here. I turned, and the crowd opened for me the way it never had before. Not out of respect, out of not knowing what I was. That was fine. Not knowing was the only edge I had over people who outranked me 100 to 1. The little creature shifted against my chest. I had it tucked in the crook of my arm, half inside my ember-orange scarf, and it made a sound like coals settling in a grate. Amber eyes, no bigger than seeds, blinked up at me. I felt something in me that I had not felt in the 11 days since my family read their verdict. I felt believed in. I walked out of the clearing with a retempered blade and a beast the size of a kitten, and behind me the grade board had not caught up yet. It would. The forge was cold when I came back to it that night. They had let me keep the forge, which tells you exactly how little they thought it was worth. The great anvil sat black in the dark. The coals were banked to almost nothing. In the corner, the still smoking scar in the stone where the ancestral sword had been split 3 weeks ago had finally gone quiet. I set the broken blade across my knees and I looked at it properly for the first time since the clearing. There was a mark on the edge that had not been there this morning. A thin-etched line, curved like a tongue of flame, burned clean into the steel. The duelist's flame strike. It was living in the metal now, the way the rule promised it would. Tasked. Below it, faint as breath on cold glass, a readout I had first seen the night the sword broke and woke in my hands. Techniques absorbed. 1. Grade E. I want to be honest about the rule because I only ever said it out loud once, and I said it that night, to the beast, in the dark. It doesn't block what hits it, I told it. It keeps it and grows a rank, the creature yawned. That was the whole of my explanation. I never needed more, and I never gave more. I cupped it in both hands. It weighed almost nothing. A double handful of live coals seamed with dark iron plate, a wisp of forge smoke curling off its back where a tail should be. When I breathed on it, the coal body brightened. When I said it knew the blade, it turned toward the etched glyph, the way a plant turns to a window. Ember, I said, trying the name in the empty room. It fit. It purred, low and banked, and pressed its iron-plated head into my thumb. I sat with it a long time. A boy priced below a scrap of metal, alone in a cold room, holding the one thing in the world that had looked at him and decided he was worth more than they said. My family had a verdict. The blade had an argument. That night I decided to trust the blade. Wonder is a dangerous thing to let back in. It makes you hope, and hope is the thing they had tried hardest to take. But I let it in anyway, and I slept better than I had in 3 weeks. Morning took it back. I was scraping the last of the porridge when the steward came. He was my father's man. I will not put his master's name in a room. The man was too proud to enter himself. The steward had a green and bronze collar and a face built for delivering bad news to people who could not answer back. "Your gate pass," he said, and held out his gloved hand. I did not move. "The clearings are for hunters of the house," he went on, in the flat voice of a man reading a list. "You are no longer of the house. The pass reverts." "I cleared a rank yesterday," I said, "in public, on the board." "You cleared nothing." A broken half caught a lucky spark. He wiggled his fingers. "The pass." I could have fought it. I could have shown him the glyph on the edge and the readout that said E where it had said F. But the readout meant nothing to a man who had already decided what he was looking at, and showing him would only have taught the family the rule I most needed them not to understand. So I unhooked the pass from my belt and set it in his palm. The verdict my family had read out 3 weeks ago had been words. This was the words becoming a wall, no good gates, no sanctioned fronts, no safe clearings. In a valley where being cast out of a strong house is a slow death sentence, they had just taken the roof. "There," the steward said. "Almost kind. Best you find work in a town somewhere. Sweep a floor, live quiet." Embers stirred inside my scarf and let out a coal hiss. The steward glanced at it, decided it was a stray cat that had crawled in for warmth, and turned to go. He never looked at it twice. Nobody would, for a long time. That, too, was an edge. At the door, he paused. "You should know," he said. "Your brother laughed when they told him you were at the clearing. He said it was good the scrap had somewhere to go and be forgotten." The wall got one course higher. I said nothing. "I have learned that the people who are winning talk, and the people who are planning listen." I listened. By midday, the clearing district had heard about the flame duelist, because a crowd is a mouth and a mouth cannot hold anything. I could not get through the main gate, no pass. So I stood at the edge of the district where the low ring meets the road, and I watched the tiers fill for the day's ranked bouts, and I let the talk wash over me. It was all one shape. A scrap blade boy caught a flame strike and did not burn. The duelist swears his technique is gone. He swung it this morning at a post and nothing came. The board still says the boy is E and everyone knows, and E does not eat an A rank's fire. Then a different voice from up in the sanctioned tier pitched to Carrie. "It's the blade doing it, not him." A young man, my age or near it, leaning on the rail in a white and gold coat with green trim, teal-black hair shaved to a spiked undercut, acid green eyes sharp as a wasp. Every badge on him sanctioned, licensed, official. He looked down at me the way you look at a coin in the gutter you are deciding whether to bend for. Anyone could do it. Give me that broken half and I'd be SSS by winter. The tier laughed with him because he was licensed and I was not. I looked up at him and I did not answer, and that made him angrier than any answer would have. He wanted the scrap to bite so the crowd could watch a prodigy put it down. I gave him nothing. I filed his face away instead. The golden boy who could not stand to be out climbed by a cast-off, and I thought, not with heat, but with the cold flat certainty of a smith reading a bar of metal, "You are exactly what I would become if I ever let their board tell me what I was worth." I would not. But he had said the thing out loud, and it was the thing I most needed the district to believe. It's the blade, not him. Let them think it. Let them think anyone could do it. Let them keep swinging, because here was the trap I was walking into, and I walked into it with my eyes open. The blade only grows when it is struck. I could not hammer my own rank out of it in this cold forge. I could not grind it up alone in a field. Somebody had to swing at it, and the surest way to make people swing at a thing is to convince them it is beneath them. The flame duelist had struck me out of contempt. Contempt, it turned out, was fuel. I had a whole valley full of it. I found a training yard behind the low ring that afternoon, the kind unlicensed hopefuls use, and I stopped at a scorched practice dummy near the fence. Ember hopped down from my scarf and padded to it. Its little body flared, turning toward the burn marks on the straw, the coal seams brightening. It did that near techniques, leaned toward them, telegraphed them, like a dog catching a scent. I was still learning what it was trying to tell me. The dummy's chest was black in a spiral pattern, deep and clean at the center, ragged at the edges. I crouched and read it the way my hands had been trained to read metal since I could walk. A smith's eye does not turn off just because the family took your name. If anything, it sharpened. When you have nothing else, you notice everything. Somebody had put a real technique into this straw, not a duelist's flashy flame. Something denser, something that had bitten in and locked. The scorch had the signature of a move that had crushed before it burned. Regional masterwork, or a good student of one. You could see where the power had a shape, a grammar, a name. I put my hand flat on the char. Ember pressed its head against my wrist. I thought about the readout on my blade. One technique, grade E, a common move, a duelist's trick, had lifted it one rank and woken the beast. And a master's signature, a legendary move, one of a kind, the sort that took a scorch this deep out of dry straw, would not lift it one rank the way a spark does. It would be a milestone. A door. 6 of those doors stood between me and the top, each one guarded by a person famous enough that the valley knew their move by name. 6 masters, 6 techniques with names, 6 people I would have to stand in front of on purpose and let land a killing blow on the metal without flinching, and hope the reforge was not a half-beat slow. I should have been afraid. I found, kneeling in the dirt with my hand on a dead man's practice char and a beast made of coals leaning into my wrist, that I mostly was not. The fear was there. It was just smaller than the plan. 6 doors, I said to Ember. It looked up at me, amber-eyed, and its coal body pulsed once, warm against the cooling afternoon. We're going to walk through all 6. It was the first time I had said we, dusk. I was banking the forge coals for the night when a stone came over the wall and landed by my foot with a note tied to it. I knew the hand before I unfolded it, small, careful, looping, my sister's. 16 years old, and the only one of them who had not looked away when they read the verdict. Strawberry blonde, always with a book, always in the corner of the family's rooms watching the rest of them be cruel and hating it in silence. The note said, "They took your pass. There is a back gate at the low ring, the eastern service arch. The token opens it. Use it before Soren thinks to close that one too." And below that, smaller, pressed hard enough to dent the paper, he is telling everyone the vintage is unbeaten and always will be. Please be careful. Please don't make them notice you. Folded inside was a token of dark clan iron, a back gate pass, warm from being carried in a girl's fist. I turned it over in my fingers. It was a small thing and it was everything. It was a way back into the rings when the family had walled me out of them. It was also a rope tied around my sister's own neck, because if they learned she had helped me, her standing would fall with mine. She was trying to keep me alive and reconcile a family that did not deserve her, both at once, and the two hopes pulled against each other, and she did not seem to know it yet. Please don't make them notice you. I looked at the token. I looked at the blade on the anvil, one glyph etched grade E, warm and patient in the dark. I looked at the beast curled in my scarf that would grow every time the blade did. I was going to make them notice me. I was going to make the whole valley notice me. There was no version of the climb where I stayed quiet, because the blade only grew in front of a crowd, witnessed, on the board, credited to me by name. That was the price, and I had already decided to pay it. I just had not told her yet. I closed my hand around the token. "Thank you," I said to a girl a mile away who would never hear it. Somewhere across the district, in a hall lit by badges, my brother was telling a room full of important people that his sword could not be beaten. He believed it. Everyone believed it. Only 2 people in the valley knew that every time an enemy struck my blade in anger, he was handing me one more rank, and one of those 2 people could not talk, and the other one was me. The last of the day's crowd was leaving the low ring when I got there. I did not go in. Not tonight. But I stood in the road where the tiers could see me, and I watched the grade board over the eastern arch do the thing boards do at the close of the day, scroll through the climbs that had been logged, the winners of each bout, the ranks moving up a notch. And near the bottom, in the small print where the nobodies live, it scrolled past a line it had not held this morning. Vinter, K, F, then a flicker. Then E, somebody in the thinning crowd saw it too. "The board's climbing," a woman said, half to herself, pointing. "It's climbing for the forge boy." "That grade is wrong," a man beside her said. "Check it again." They checked it again. It said E. The flame duelist's own move was etched on my edge. The board had my name on it, one rank higher than the family had priced me, and the crowd was doing the arithmetic out loud and not liking the answer they got. A murmur moved through them, low and uneasy, the sound of people whose certainty has just taken its first small crack. I stood in the road with a stripped gate pass and a back gate token in my pocket, a retempered blade against my spine, and a beast made of ember and warm iron waking against my chest. Behind me, the board glowed E. In front of me, the whole valley slept certain that grade was destiny, and destiny was theirs to hand out. 5 ranks and 6 masters to go before the guild noticed. Isolde's back gate token was cold in my fist. It got me into a low clearing on the wrong side of the ember gate. No crowd tears here. No grade board with lights, just packed dirt, a rope ring, and men too poor for a real gate. That was fine. I did not need lights. I needed someone to swing. Ember rode my shoulder. Kitten small, a coal that purred. Its tail was a wisp of forge smoke. It blinked its amber eyes at the ring and pressed warm against my neck. The broken blade hung at my hip, edge still short, still half a sword. But it glowed now, faint under the soot, and only I knew what that meant. I knew the rule. It kept every technique that struck it. It grew a rank. But a blade that grows only when it is hit is useless unless someone hits it. So I had to make someone want to. The biggest man in the ring was called Bram. D rank, thick through the shoulders, a stone fist hunter who cracked walls for coin. He was showing 3 younger hunters how to plant a stance. Heel down, knee bent, weight low. I watched his feet. Then I laughed. He turned. Something funny, Scrap? Your back heel. I nodded at it. It floats when you load the punch. A child could put you down. The younger ones went quiet. Bram's face darkened. Status had moved, and everyone in the ring felt it move. Say that again. You lift the heel. I kept my voice flat, dry, bored. Every time. He telegraphed like a bell. He crossed the dirt. Big steps. Get in the ring, Forge boy. Let me show you your place. That was line 10. They all said some version of it. I climbed through the ropes. Ember slid off my shoulder and dropped to the dirt at the ring's edge. It flared, just once, its little body brightening toward Bram. Warmth reaching for the danger. I had learned to read that. It meant a strike was coming. You won't dodge? Bram rolled his shoulder. Stone crept up his forearm, gray and cracking, a fist turning to boulder. No, I said. I never dodge. I planted my feet. I did not raise the broken blade to guard. I turned the flat of it toward him and held it steady, out from my body, into the space his fist would fill. He read it as arrogance. Everyone did. That was the whole trick. Then die standing, he said, and threw the stone fist. I did not move. I let it come. The boulder fist hit the metal square. For one white instant, the whole ring held its breath. The blow that should have shattered my arm slammed into the flat of the broken blade and stopped. The stone did not smash through. It sank in. I felt it drink. Heat ran up the metal into my palm. The broken blade flared, edge to break, a deep forge orange. Bram's stone fist crumbled off his own arm, gray dust falling to the dirt, the power torn out of him and pulled into my edge. A new mark burned itself along the metal, a thin, hard glyph, a fist inside a ring. The forge gauge along the blade ticked. Techniques 2. Grade D, E to D, right there in front of every poor hunter in the low clearing. Bram staggered back and looked at his own arm. Bare skin, no stone. His mouth opened and nothing came out. My stone fist, he said, dumb with it, staring at his bare arm. How is it in his blade? The 3 young ones stared. One of them said the board wasn't even here to lie about it. There was no board. They had seen it with their own eyes, and then the light at the ring's edge moved. Ember was growing. It had been kitten small. Now it stretched, and the stretch did not stop. Its coal body swelled to the size of a fox, then a small lynx. The dark iron plates across its back spread wider and cleaner, the coal seams between them burning brighter. Along its flanks, faint lines of light rose to the surface, the same fist in a ring glyph glowing on its hide, matched to the blade. It shook itself. Sparks scattered. It sat, twice the beast it had been a breath ago, and yawned a small gout of heat. A cub now, not a kitten. The blade had climbed, and so had Ember. I felt the broken blade settle in my hand, a hair longer than it had been. Not whole, not close, but the break where the ancestral sword had been split looked less like a wound and more like a seam waiting to close. I looked at Bram. He was still holding the arm that used to make him money. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it plainly, the way you thank a man who hands you a tool. That was the part no one knew how to answer. He had come to break me, and I had bowed my head to the blow, and now I was thanking him for the gift. The younger hunters did not laugh. They looked at me the way you look at a thing you don't have a word for yet. I climbed out of the ring. Ember padded after me, heavier-footed, leaving small scorch prints in the dirt. Word does not need a grade board. Word needs mouths, and the low clearing is all mouths. By the next morning, it had crossed the Ember Gate, the scrap-laid boy, the one who won't dodge. The half a sword that ate Bram's stone fist and turned it into a rank. I felt the change the way you feel weather. Men who would have spat at me a week ago now watched me cross the yard. Some of them measured me, some of them measured the blade. A wind hunter caught me near the water trough. Young, cocky, wanting the story to be true so he could be the one who tested it. He swung a thin air cut at the metal without a word of warning. Ember flared. I turned the blade. The air cut struck the edge and sank in, and a second common glyph took its place along the metal. The gauge did not tick a grade. I had already drunk a wind move's cousin, and the rule is 1 grade per new kind, in sequence. But the technique lived in my edge now, and its owner's hands were empty. He backed off fast. "It's the blade doing it," he said, loud, so the yard would hear. "Not him. Anyone could." Line 21, NB, dressed as a verdict. I let it stand. Let them say the blade did it. The blade was mine. But 2 men that morning did something the mockers never did. They did not swing. The first was a spear hunter who watched me from 10 paces, hand on his weapon, and then deliberately turned and walked away. The second stopped a friend mid-swing, caught his wrist, leaned in, said something low. The friend's arm dropped. They both looked at me like I was a fire you don't feed. That was the thing that put a cold finger on my spine. Because the rule cut both ways. Every man who struck the blade armed it, but a blade that only grows when it is struck is a blade you can starve. Stand back, fold your arms, refuse to swing, and the scrap stays scrap. The mockers would keep feeding me for a while. Pride is loud, and loud men swing, but somewhere out there a smart one would work it out and stop. I would have to learn to make them swing anyway. I turned that over as I walked, and I did not like how big it was. There was a training yard behind the low clearing, past the trough where the real hunters drilled. I was not allowed in. I stood at the fence and watched anyway. Nobody stopped a scrap boy from watching. That was where I first saw him, up on the raised stand above the drill yard where the sanctioned hunters sat, Nils Harrow. I knew the coat before I knew the face. White and gold with green trim, the licensed golden boy cut you saw on sponsor boards. Teal black hair, spiked short, sharp acid green eyes. He could not have been older than me. He was already adjacent, already famous, already bored. He was looking straight down at me. "So that's the scrap," he said. He did not raise his voice. He did not have to. The yard went quiet for him. "The one who won't dodge." "That's me," I said. He smiled without any warmth in it. "You know what a trick is, Forge Boy? A trick works until people see it." He leaned on the rail. "You're a story right now. Stories get told once, then everyone knows the ending, and they stop watching." "Come test it, then." Something flickered behind the green eyes. He wanted to. I saw the want. He was a man who could not stand to be outclimbed by a cast-off, and every mouth in the region was telling my story instead of his. But he was also not stupid, and I watched him choose not to swing. "No," he said. "I think I'll let you climb. It's a longer fall from higher up." He pushed off the rail. "Enjoy the low gates. Scrap. That's where you'll die." He walked off, and the sanctioned crowd went with him, and I stood at the fence with my heart going hard. He had done the one thing that scared me. He had refused. The loudest, proudest boy in the region had looked at the blade and kept his hands off it. The smart ones were already starting. Ember pressed against my leg, cub-heavy and warm. I put my hand on its plated back and felt the fist glyph humming under my palm, and I made myself think instead of fear. If the smart ones would starve the blade, then a bully's swing was never going to carry me far enough. Bram gave me a rank. The wind boy gave me a tool. But those were scraps feeding scraps. Eat a D on a stone fist. I needed bigger fuel. I needed the biggest. The drill yard had a training dummy at its center, a heavy post wrapped in scorched leather, the kind the top hunters used to sink their signature moves into. It was black with old burns and gouges, and it told a story if you had a smith's eye. I had a smitsai. It was the one thing my family never managed to take. I climbed the fence when the yard emptied and crouched by the post. Ember came with me, nose working and flared low over the marks, telegraphing, reading the ghosts of old techniques the way it read incoming ones. I ran my fingers over the burns. Most were shallow, common moves, chips and scorches from 100 ranked drills. But 3 gouges near the base were different, deep, clean, each one a single, perfect signature, a technique that only one hand in the region could make. One had bitten a fist of solid rock into the wood and locked it there. The leather around it had crushed inward like a hand had closed. Stone. Not Bram's cracked boulder fist, something older, heavier, a master's lock. I knew the name by reputation. Everyone did. Stone lock. Osgar Mott's move, the stone master, first of the 6. I sat back on my heels. Ember settled against my knee, glyphs glowing soft. 6 masters ruled the region. I had heard the number my whole life, the way you hear weather. But kneeling by that post, reading the depth of one master's signature against the shallow scratches of 100 ordinary hunters, the number stopped being a story and turned into a shape I could measure. A bully swing was worth a shallow chip. A master's signature was carved to the base of the post. One master's move, struck onto the broken blade, would not be a rank, it would be a milestone, a leap no common technique could give me, a glyph grander than anything a bully could leave. 6 of them, 6 deep gouges to collect, 6 moves that would carry me all the way up the ladder to the top, if I could stand in front of each one and not flinch. And that was the catch, and I let myself feel the whole weight of it. To take a master's signature, I would have to walk up to a master and make him use it on me, not a bully in a rope ring. A master. Osgar Mott, whose stone had crushed the leather inward, and after him 5 more, each one stronger, each one able to end me if the blade drank a half beat too slow. 6 masters. He'd have to walk into all 6. I looked at Ember, cub-sized and warm, born from the first small win, and I thought about how big it would have to grow. How big I would have to grow. 6 doors, and every one of them a man who could kill me on the way through. I stayed there a long while, palm on the burned leather, tracing the depth of it against the shallow marks. 100 ordinary hunters had beaten on this post for years and left scratches. One master had come once and left a scar. That was the difference the number had been hiding from me my whole life. Grim satisfaction had carried me into the low clearing. It was not enough for this. This was a plan you did not talk yourself into with satisfaction. This was a plan you chose with your eyes open, knowing the cost, or you did not choose it at all. I pressed my palm flat to the deep gouge. Stonelock. Master 1. I chose it, fear and all. The plan was bigger than the fear, and it was mine. We're going to the Stone Master, I told Ember. It flared once, agreement or warning, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. I found Isolde at the back gate that evening, where she could pass a word without being seen. Strawberry blonde braid, rose shawl pulled up. 16, and already better than the whole clan put together. You're the story of the Lowgates, she said. You know that. I heard. They're saying you ate Bram's fist. She almost smiled. Then she didn't. Cade. Soren's saying things too. Soren says a lot of things. He's boasting the Winter Edge is unbeaten. Her voice dropped. In front of the whole hall. He held it up and said, no blade in the region has ever taken a mark off it, that it never will. She searched my face. He doesn't know what your broken half does. None of them do. He thinks he's safe. I said nothing for a moment. The Winter Edge, the whole ancestral sword. The SSS they reforged for my brother out of the same steel they left me a broken piece of, unbeaten. He had said it in front of the whole hall, laughing, sure of it, and only 2 people in the region knew that the more he swung it, the surer it would end up in my edge. The irony sat in my chest, heavy and warm as a banked coal. Let him boast, I said. Isolde frowned. That's it? He's arming me, and he doesn't know it. I looked past her, toward the high gates where the lights were, where the board with the real ranks lived. Every man who swings at the broken blade makes it stronger. Soren just told the whole hall he can't wait to swing. But even as I said it, Nils's face was there behind my eyes. The one who had looked and refused. Because the loud ones would keep feeding me. Soren would. Bram had. The mockers always swing. The smart ones would stop swinging. The road to the rift front climbed for 2 days. I walked it alone, the broken blade wrapped in cloth on my back. Ember rode my shoulder, a warm weight, coals banked under iron plates. It was bigger now, cub-sized, fox lean, the glyph glow on its flanks pulsing when I breathed. A master held this front, Osgar Mott. They called him the Stone Master. I had beaten bullies. I had baited haymakers out of fools in low clearings. That was practice. A master was a door I had never opened. 6 doors. This was the first. The front was not an arena. No crowd tiers, no live grade board. Just a broken mountain pass above a mining town where a rift bled monsters into the rock. Hunters worked it in shifts. They wore Osgar's colors, slate and ochre, and they watched me come up the switchbacks like I was something the surge had spat out. "Lost, Forge Boy?" one called. Gates downhill. I kept climbing. Embers stiffened on my shoulder. Its body flared, coals brightening, the smoke of its tail streaming up the trail toward the pass. It was pointing. It always pointed at danger now, leaned toward it, lit up for it. I had learned to read it like a compass, with only one direction. Danger was straight ahead. "I'm looking for Osgar Mott," I said. I got a laugh. It ran down the line of hunters like a spark. "The master's busy holding a rift closed," one said. "He doesn't duel scrap." "He will," I said, "when he hears what the scrap did to Jarek Doss." The laughing stopped a little. Word had gone ahead of me. Not much. A rumor. A whisper down the trade roads. An F-rank cast-off whose broken blade ate a champion's flame strike, then ate a bully's swing, then climbed. Most people called it a lie, but the whisper had teeth, and I had walked here on purpose to test them. They took me up to the pass anyway. Curiosity beats contempt most days. Osgar Mott stood at the mouth of the rift. He was huge, bald, gray-bearded, granite-eyed, his armor cut from slabs of gray stone that moved when he moved. Behind him the rift glowed a sick red, and a dead surge beast the size of a cart lay crushed at his feet, folded in on itself like wet paper. He had not used a weapon. He had used the ground. He looked at me the way you look at a stain. "They said a boy wanted me," he rumbled, "with a broken half of a sword." "Cade Vinter," I said. "I've come to take your technique." Silence. Then the front laughed. All of it, the whole ochre line, a wall of sound bouncing off the rock. Osgar did not laugh. He studied me. Master's eyes. He saw the cloth-wrapped break on my back, saw ember glowing on my shoulder, and something in his weathered face went still and careful. For half a breath I thought he understood. Then his lip curled. "Take it," he said. "Come here and take it then." I did not move toward him. That was the trap I was learning to avoid, walking in, giving him a body to break. A blow that missed, fed at nothing. A blow to my chest, fed at nothing. Only a technique struck at the metal and landed there, so I unwrapped the broken blade. I let them all see it. Cracked once, keener now, a common glyph and a second glyph etched bright along an edge that had grown a hand's width longer than the scrap I'd knelt with in the cold forge. The forge gauge glowed against the steel. Techniques absorbed. 2. Grade D. "You've heard the rumor," I said. "Every hunter on this front has, so let me make it simple. Hit this blade with everything you have, your best move, your famous one." Osgar's beard twitched. "And why," he said slowly, "would I do that?" "Because you don't believe it," I said. "And a master can't stand not being believed." That landed. I watched it land. His hunters were watching him now, not me, waiting to see if the great Osgar Mott would be goaded by a scrap blade boy. His reputation was suddenly a thing he had to defend. Status is a leash. I had just given it a pull. "Stonelock," someone in the line breathed. "He's going to use Stonelock on a child." "Then it's a short duel," Osgar said, and he raised both hands. The ground answered him. I had never seen anything like it. The whole pass shuddered. Stone tore up out of the mountain in slabs, in ribs, in a cage of grinding gray that folded around me faster than I could think. Not thrown, not swung, but locked. Binding armor, they called it. It closed on me like a fist made of the mountain itself. Walls of stone crushing inward, aimed at my body, meant to grind me into the same wet paper shape as the surge beast at his feet. Ember screamed. A small furnace streak. It flared white-hot and leaned into the closing stone, telling me what I already knew. This would kill me if I got it wrong. And here is the thing the engine demands, the thing that makes it terrible. I had to stand still inside a killing move and hold the broken blade into it, and trust the metal to drink before the mountain crushed us both. A half-beat slow and Stonelock closes, and I am gone. Fear hit me like cold water. Every animal part of me wanted to run. I planted my feet. I turned the broken blade edge out into the closing cage, and I did not move. The stone came. I could hear it. A low, grinding roar, the mountain remembering how to be a weapon. Ember pressed against my neck, burning, steadying. I breathed out. I let it come. Stonelock hit the blade. For one heartbeat, the whole crushing weight of the mountain met a hand's width of broken steel, and the steel did not break. It drank. The stone armor, all of it, the cage, the ribs, the slabs still tearing up out of the ground, stopped, reversed, poured. It came off the mountain and off the air, and it ran into the metal like water down a drain, like the pass itself was being pulled into the edge of my blade. The grinding roar rose to a shriek and then cut to silence. The broken blade flared. Not the small glow of a common absorption. This was a bonfire. The steel went white, then gold, then a deep forge red, and it grew. I felt it lengthen in my hands, the edge stretching, keening, becoming more sword and less scrap. A third glyph burned itself into the steel above the other two, but this one was different, bigger, grander. A knot of light shaped like locked stone, 3 times the size of the common marks, blazing where the others only glowed. A master glyph. The forge gauge ticked over against the metal. Techniques absorbed. 3. Grade C. D to C. Master 1 of 6. And Osgar Mott stood with his hands out and empty, and nothing came. He tried again. I saw it. I saw the great master reach for the ground the way he'd reached 10,000 times, the way that had made him famous across the region. The past did not answer. The stone did not rise. Stonelock was gone from him. It lived in my blade now, an etched knot of light, and when I turned the broken half in my hand, I felt the whole weight of the mountain waiting inside it, mine to swing. Ember uncurled off my shoulder and stretched, larger than it had been an hour ago, the new master glyph faint and answering on its flank. The front had gone dead quiet. I looked at Osgar. The fear had drained out of me somewhere in that held breath, and what was left was calm. A still, cold, level calm I hadn't known I owned. I had stood inside a killing move and not flinched. I had trusted the blade one more time, in front of a master with my life on the table, and the blade had not lied. "Thank you," I said. "I meant it. He'd made me stronger. They always do." Osgar's face was the color of the ash on his beard. He looked at his empty hands. He looked at the boy who had just taken the move that was his whole name. A master is his signature technique. Strip it, and you strip the thing he built his life on. I watched Osgar Mott understand, in front of every hunter he commanded, that he had just handed me the one thing that made him Osgar Mott. "Stonelock," a woman in the ochre line said, and her voice cracked on it. "He took Stonelock. It's living in that boy's edge now." "He didn't dodge," said another. "Did you see? He wanted the hit." A master just lost his signature move to a cast-off. The line broke into noise, not laughing now. The whole front had watched it, close and clear. No crowd tears between them and the truth. A scrap-blade boy stripped the stone master where he stood. These were Osgar's own hunters, his front line, and they had seen it with their own eyes, and no story they told later could unsee it. That is the part the guild would never understand. Later, when they came to take the blade, there was nothing to hide. Every win happened in the open, credited to me, witnessed by the exact people who'd sworn it was impossible. The rumor that had walked ahead of me up the switchbacks would walk back down them tonight with 50 new mouths behind it, and by the trade roads it would not be a rumor anymore. It would be a thing that happened, a thing people saw. Regional word of mouth. It turns slow, but it turns. A boy at the back of the line stared at me the longest. Young, maybe 12, an errand runner for the front. He wasn't afraid. He looked at the broken blade the way I used to look at the SSS sword before they took it, like it was proof the world could be more than the grade someone printed on your badge. I held his eyes a moment, then I looked away. I didn't have room yet to think about what that look would grow into. I wrapped the broken blade, longer now, heavier, keener, back in its cloth. Now, my hands were steady. I turned to go. "Stop." Ozher's voice had changed. The rumble was still there, but under it something I hadn't heard before. Not contempt. Fear dressed up as rage. "You don't know what you've done," he said. "I made you smaller," I said. "You'll live." I made this front. He took a step. Stone armor grinding. Plain armor now, dead weight, no technique left in it. For 30 years I held that rift. Stonelock was mine. And you, a whelp with half a sword, you walked up here and stole it in one breath like it was nothing. "It wasn't nothing," I said. "It was the best thing you had." Wrong words. I saw them hit. Something closed in his granite eyes. A door shutting. When a bully loses, he slinks off. When a master loses, in public, everything he is, that's different. That doesn't heal. That festers. That blade, Osgar said, low and shaking, is an abomination, a thing that grows fat on other men's craft. It should never have been forged, and the half you carry should have been swept into the slag. His voice climbed. I will not rest, boy. Do you hear me? Not the guild, not your family, me. I will hunt that broken blade to the ends of this region, and I will see it destroyed if I have to grind you to paper to do it. His hunters were quiet. Some looked at their feet. A master swearing a blood oath in front of his own front. They knew what that meant. It bound them too. I had come up this mountain hunting a technique. I was leaving with an enemy who would never stop. That was the cost, though I didn't have the full shape of it yet. The engine takes a hit to feed, but the world takes one too. Every move I stole made me stronger and made someone who would rather see me dead than diminished. Osgar Mott was the first master to hate me. He would not be the last. He came for me then. On foot, no technique, just a big, furious man with a stone club he'd torn from the pass and 40 years of killing behind his arm. His hunters didn't move to help. That told me something. They weren't sure anymore whose side the impossible was on. I could have ended it. That's the thing I keep coming back to. I had Stonelock now. I had a C-grade blade and the whole weight of a mountain sleeping in the edge. Osgar was diminished, half of what he'd been an hour ago, swinging a rock like a common brawler. I could have baited one more strike onto the metal and taken whatever common technique he had left. I could have buried him under his own stone. A live enemy who'd sworn to destroy me. The smart, safe thing was to make sure he never got the chance. Ember flared toward him, hot and ready, waiting for me to say the word. I stepped back instead, let the club whistle past, stepped back again, down the switchback, keeping the broken blade wrapped, keeping the mountain in my edge asleep. Because I finally understood what I was doing up here, and it wasn't revenge. I wasn't hunting Osgar. I wasn't hunting any of them. If I stopped to punish every man who'd sworn to break me, I'd never leave the first mountain. I'd become the thing that only measures itself by who it's beaten, Nils Harrow in the stands, defined entirely by the board. That wasn't the climb, no. That was a cage, same as the one Osgar had tried to fold me into. 5 doors left, 5 masters, 5 techniques, and a broken blade that had to reforge all the way to whole before the guild worked out what it was. I had a ladder to climb. Osgar Mott was just the bottom rung, screaming behind me. Run then, he roared down the pass. Run, coward. But that thing on your back grows every time it's struck, and there are people who will burn the whole valley to see it in pieces. You've woken something, boy. You don't even know what. I didn't turn around. But he wasn't wrong, and some cold part of me knew it. Down in the mining town, the rumor was already moving. I could feel it, the way you feel, weather change. A scrap blade boy took the stonemaster's move and let him live. By morning, it would be on every trade road in the region. By the week's end, it would reach the Glass and Steel Hall, where the Ironmark Association cataloged every technique in the valley, and the wall of ranked badges, and the men whose whole purpose was making sure nothing grew without a license. Ember settled back onto my shoulder, warm, heavier than yesterday, the new master glyph banking to an ember glow on its flank. Below us, the switchbacks fell away toward the towns and the trade roads and the 5 masters I hadn't met yet. I had climbed 1 grade and made 1 enemy who would never stop. For the first time since they left me the broken half in the cold forge, I understood the shape of what I'd started. It wasn't just that they'd underestimated me, it was that every step up the ladder made the fall longer. Now something wanted him dead, not just mocked. The gray board loomed over the Embergate arena like a second sun. Names in glowing rank order. Soren sat near the top, crowned in blue light. Mine wasn't on it at all. A C-rank scrap boy didn't rate a line. I stood in the crowd tier shadow and let them not see me. That was fine. The broken blade rode across my back. Longer now, keener. The first master glyph banked along its edge like a coal. Ember dozed inside my apron, cub-sized iron plates warm against my ribs. Osgar was somewhere behind me in the region, swearing to grind this metal to dust. Let him swear. I wasn't hunting anyone. I was climbing. Tally's Bly held this front, the Windmaster. Her signature was the second milestone I wanted, and she was 3 tiers up a ranked staircase I hadn't been invited onto. Then a voice cut across the tiers, pitched to Carrie. There he is, the forge boy. Heads turned. Not toward the board this time, toward me. Nils Harrow came down the steps like he owned them. White and gold coat, green trim that spiked teal-black hair the sponsors loved. Acid green eyes already laughing. A sanctioned prodigy, licensed, celebrated, everything I'd been thrown out for, not being. I heard a rumor, he said. A cast-off Vinter beat a master with a broken piece of junk. I came to see the junk. You're seeing it, I said. The crowd laughed. At me, they thought. I'll make it official. He raised his voice for the adjudicator's box. Sanction clearing. Him and me, right now, on the board. He smiled at the tears. Somebody has to put the scrap back in its place. He wasn't asking. He was performing. A licensed hunter challenging an unranked nobody was free status, a guaranteed win in front of a crowd, his name climbing off my humiliation. I felt the old want stir, the one that used to run me. Make them take it back, make them see. I let it settle instead. Fine, I said. The word came out flat and calm, and the calm landed wrong on him. Contempt is easy to answer with heat. Nils had loaded himself for a boy who'd flinch. He got a boy who shrugged. His smile thinned. Fine, he echoed. The adjudicators logged it. A clerk in slate gray with a teal armband glanced up from the ledger, chestnut bob, warm brown eyes, and her pen paused a half beat on my name before she wrote it. Liana Bear. I didn't know her yet. She knew me already, it turned out. She'd been the one logging every climb into the record I couldn't see. They cleared a ring on the arena floor. The board flickered, adding a temporary line. Harrow versus Vinter. Mine and dim provisional gray. Nils rolled his neck as we walked out. No hard feelings, Forge boy. You made it further than anyone thought. That's something. It is, I agreed. He took his stance. Acid green light gathered at his fists, a fast striking technique, a common one but clean and well trained. A prodigy's polish. I planted my feet. I did not draw to fight. I turned the broken blade flat and held it out into the space where his strike would land. Aren't you going to guard? He called. I am guarding, I said. He didn't understand. Good. Ember stirred against my ribs, uncurled, poked its coal-bright head from the apron and flared. A small hot pulse aimed straight at Nils, telegraphing the incoming blow the way it always did now. To me it was a warning bell. To the crowd it looked like a house cat waking up. Nils struck. The technique crossed the ring in a green blur and hit the flat of the metal square. No dodge, no parry. Contact. That was the whole rule, the only rule. The blade drank it. Light poured off the edge. The green move guttered, thinned, and sank into the steel, gone from Nils's hands forever, and living now in mine. A new glyph etched itself down the blade with a sound like a struck bell. Common, not a master's mark. Smaller, plainer. But there, the edge came up a hair keener. The metal sang. Nils staggered back, staring at his own empty fists. He tried to summon the strike again, the reflex of a hunter reaching for a move he'd trained 10,000 times, and nothing came. His hands stayed dark. He looked at them like they belonged to someone else. Thank you, I said. He blinked. What? For the technique. I let the broken blade rest at my side. It's mine now. You won't miss it. You've got prettier ones. Somewhere in the tears, a single person laughed, and it wasn't at me this time. Nils's face went from confusion to something rawer. He swung again, reflex, fury, and I let that one land too, and it did nothing, because the blade already held its shape and you can't feed it the same meal twice. It only rocked me half a step. He stood there breathing hard, out one signature move and one shred of dignity, and the adjudicator called the clearing. The provisional gray line on the board didn't tick a full rank. A common absorb doesn't crown you, but it steadied the metal, and it did something better than a number. It put my name up in front of every set of eyes in the arena, printed and witnessed, next to the prodigy I just emptied. That's not possible, Nils said quietly, to no one. It keeps happening, I told him, and walked off the floor. Behind me, the crowd had stopped watching the board. They were watching me leave. I meant to go quiet after that, bank the win, move toward Talus Bly's front on my own terms. The Windmaster had other ideas. She was already there. She'd come down to see the fuss, the way masters do when a rumor walks into their arena. Pale sea-green hair loose to her waist, pale silver eyes, teal-gray robes moving on air that wasn't moving for anyone else. Hollis Blythe didn't sneer like Nils. She studied me the way I study a blade with a flaw in it. You took the boy's move, she said, in front of everyone, didn't hide it, didn't even try. She tilted her head. Most thieves work in the dark. I'm not a thief, I said. They give it to me. They just don't mean to. And you'd like mine. No point lying to a master's eyes. Yes. The tears had gone still. This wasn't a licensed prodigy stunt anymore. A regional master and a scrap blade in the same ring that emptied the vendors and filled the rails. You should know what I know, Tali said, pitching it for the crowd, because masters perform too. Oscar Mott sent word up the front. The boy with the broken metal, don't strike it, it eats what you throw. He wants it destroyed. Her pale eyes narrowed. So I won't oblige you, I'll simply outfight you. Win doesn't need to touch a blade to win. She was right, and she was smart, and she just told me exactly how to beat her. Because wind cut isn't a punch, it's a crescent of cut air, a vacuum blade thrown across distance, and to throw it at a hunter and cut him, it has to reach him. It has to land. On his guard if he raises one. On his blade if he holds it up. She only had to miss me to win. All I had to do was make her want to hit me too badly to miss. You're afraid of a broken half, I said, loud enough to carry. The Windmaster, warned off a scrap by a stonecutter who already lost. Her jaw tightened a fraction. Oscar told you not to swing because he swung and I took Stonelock off him, I went on. That's not a warning. That's a confession. He's telling the whole front the great masters can't touch me. I lifted the broken blade and let the crowd see it. Cracked once, whole now, a master glyph glowing. Maybe he's right. Maybe none of you can. Careful, Talus said softly. Or maybe, I said, you're just the second one who's going to hand me their signature and pretend it was a mistake. That did it. Not because she was stupid, because she was proud, and a master's pride is a technique too, one they can't help using. Wind screamed up around her. The crowd flinched back from the rail. Then keep it, she said, if you can hold it. Windcut came for me, a wide crescent of vacuum edge-on singing as it split the air, aimed to open me from shoulder to hip. Ember lit like a forge, flaring toward it, and I saw the whole shape of the move in the half-second I had. A smith's eye read the technique the instant it commits. I knew where it would land before she did. I raised the broken blade into its path. I held it, did not move my feet. The crescent hit the metal. Everything went white and loud. The vacuum edge tried to shear through. I felt it drag on the steel, felt the half-beat where a slower blade would have failed and taken my arm with it. And then the metal drank. Windcut poured into the edge. The whole legendary move, the wind and the vacuum and the crescent shape of it, funneled down into the broken blade and vanished from the world. A second master glyph blazed along the steel, grander than the common one, wider, alive, and the blade lengthened again, a finger's width of new edge growing keen right there in my hand. Ember roared, small but a roar. The cub's flanks lit, both glyphs mirrored across its plating in glowing lines, coal seams flaring bright as it grew a shade larger against my leg. And the board changed. I heard it before I understood it. The whole arena drew one breath. High on the wall, in the ranked column of glowing names, a gray provisional line stopped being gray. It brightened. It climbed. Vinter, B rank, rising to the column, name by name, past hunters who'd trained their whole lives, and past a line crowned in blue. Soren Vinter. The board put my name above my brother's, on camera, in front of every soul at the Ember Gate. For one heartbeat, nobody made a sound. Then the tears erupted, not the laugh from before, something wilder, disbelieving. The board's climbing for him. He's past Soren. A cast-off is past the crowned heir. I stood in the middle of it and I did not shout. I didn't raise a fist. I looked at the two names, mine over his, the blue light of his crown now sitting under the plain white of the boy they threw out, and I felt the old want go quiet at last, filled and finished, cold and clean, a small still smile, the kind you can't perform. They'd priced me below a scrap of metal. The board had just done the arithmetic in front of the whole valley. I found him in the crowd without meaning to. Soren. Auburn hair, silver-white armor, that royal blue sash. He'd come to watch a prodigy squash a joke and see his brother put back in the dirt. He wasn't amused anymore. I watched it move across his face in real time, the easy contempt curdling, the certainty cracking. He looked at the board, then at me, then at the board again, as if it might correct itself. It didn't. His hand had gone to the Vinter edge at his hip, our family's SSS sword, the one they'd reforged for him and denied me, and his knuckles were white on it, amused to rattled in the space of one glowing line. Tali's Bly stood in the ring with empty hands and a stripped signature, and even she was looking at the board instead of at me. That's not possible, someone said again. The whole crowd's refrained now. It keeps happening, I said, to no one, to all of them. I should have felt safe, two master glyphs. name over Soren's, a rising line for the whole region to read. That was exactly the problem. A new voice came from the adjudicator's box. Flat, cold, official. It didn't perform for the crowd. It didn't have to. Hold the record. The tears hushed. A man came down from the box in a black and steel greatcoat hung with a wall of rank badges, crimson at the collar, jet black hair graying at the temples, pale ice gray eyes that took in the board and the blade and me and did not blink. I didn't know him either. I'd learn him. Marshal Cyrus Delm, Ironmark Association. That climb, he said, gesturing at the board without looking at it, is not sanctioned by any registered progression, F to B in a season, no licensed technique path. No catalog artifact? His ice gray eyes settled on the broken blade across my back. That weapon is uncatalogued, uncapped, and it is growing. He let the word sit, and the tears went quiet under it, because uncapped was a word the association only used for things it planned to lock away. The association does not permit uncapped assets to walk its arenas unregistered. The crowd's excitement cooled into something warier. Delm hadn't attacked me. Master's attack. He'd done something quieter and worse. He'd named me, put a label on me in front of the guild that ran the ladder, not a curiosity, not a cast-off, an asset, a thing to be licensed or taken. He wasn't afraid to strike me. He was too smart to strike me. He'd already worked out that a blow only feeds the blade. So he moved by paper instead of by power. And paper is slower, and paper is harder to survive. Present the weapon for assessment, Delm said, voluntarily. Now. I looked at his wall of badges and his crimson collar and the ledger open behind him. No, I said. It landed in dead silence. I'll be watching your board, Vinter. He turned back toward the box, unhurried, certain. Uncapped things get capped, one way or another. He didn't need a swing. He'd started something that didn't need one. The crowd began to break up in low, buzzing knots, and I felt the arena's whole weather change around me, from a spectacle to a target. Talus had lost a move. Soren had lost a rank, but Delm had gained a reason, and that was the thing that would follow me now. A hand touched my sleeve. Clerk. Liana Bear, teal armband, warm brown eyes gone tight and careful. Don't stand here, she said, low, moving me toward a service arch away from the box. I logged it. The climb, the absorb, the board, it's all in the official record now, credited to you, on paper. That's real, nobody can unwrite it. A breath. But that's also what he reads. Delm reads the record before he reads the room. Your guild, I said. Why help me? I'm the guild that thinks the guild should be better than Cyrus Delm. Her jaw set. That climb should be celebrated, not confiscated. So, a warning, Forge Boy one time. She glanced back at the greatcoat. He's already asked me for your movements. He doesn't flag people he means to leave alone. When Marshal Delm flags a name, a clock starts on it. Her eyes held mine. Yours just started. Ember pressed warm against my ribs, both glyphs still faintly glowing, half-grown and getting bigger. Behind us, the board still read my name above my brother's, bright white over quenched blue. The clock he'd been warned about had started. The tide front smelled of salt and cold stone. Water climbed the quarry walls in slow sheets and never fell back. Isadora Vell stood at the top of it, dry, unbothered. Her deep blue robes moved like they had their own current. Around her the flooded pit churned, and every wave was hers to hold. Delm had flagged my name at the Ember Gate, and somewhere behind me a guild clock had already started counting. I had come to take a third master's signature before the association's paper caught up to me. I walked down the wet steps with the broken blade low at my side. Ember padded beside me, cub-sized now, coals bright along its flanks. The iron plates on its back caught the gray light. It had grown with every grade. It was a warning I carried in the open. You're the Forge Boy, Isadora said. She did not raise her voice. The water carried it, the one who eats what people throw at him. That's the story. Then, here is the end of the story. She folded her hands. I won't throw anything. So she had been warned. Good. It meant they were afraid. A frightened master is a careful master, and a careful master keeps her hands still. I had spent 3 climbs learning what a strike looks like the instant before it lands. I had spent longer learning how to make someone want to strike. Osgar swung out of pride. Talus swung to prove a point. Nils swung because he could not help himself. Isadora would not swing for any of that. She had been told the rule. Every hunter who came before had armed me with their own best move. She meant to be the first who simply refused. The broken blade does one thing, it must be struck. She knew that now, and she meant to starve it. Then we'll stand here, I said. I can wait. You can't. Her eyes flicked past me, up the quarry rim. The guild is coming for that blade. You have days, maybe less. A thin smile. I only have to do nothing. She was right, and that was the trap I had to break. I looked past her, up the flooded wall, to where the water hung heaviest. Behind it, cut into the rock, was a low arch, old stonework, a shrine or a vault. She had put herself between me and it without seeming to move at all. Ember's coals flared. Its whole small body turned toward that arch and held there the way it flared toward an incoming strike. It was telling me, whatever she guarded, it mattered more to her than the fight. I stopped baiting the fight. I started walking toward the arch. Stop. First crack in the calm. I did not stop. I stepped into the shallows and the cold bit my shins, and I kept going, straight for the thing she was standing over. Ember splashed at my heel. That is not yours. Neither was the sword. I kept walking. My family thought I'd learned my place. I didn't. The water around the arch began to rise. She was gathering it without deciding to. Instinct, not plan. That was the whole game. You cannot reason a master out of protecting what she loves. You can only walk toward it until her hands move on their own. Turn around, boy. Make me. The quarry went silent. Even the sheeting water paused. I felt Ember press against my leg, coals gone white hot, its body arcing toward her like a struck match. Then the sea came for me. Tide break. Her signature. A wall of water folded over itself into a single lash, blue and hard as glass, and it came down the quarry at me with the weight of the whole flooded pit behind it. It would break stone. It would break a man. I did not dodge. I planted my feet in the cold and I lifted the broken blade into it. The wave hit the metal. It did not break me. It broke on me. The lash struck the edge and stopped, folded, poured itself into the iron. The broken blade drank the tide. Cold light ran the length of it, and the crack down its spine sealed another inch. A third master glyph burned itself into the steel, deep and grand, a spiral of water frozen in the metal. The gauge along the flat ticked over. Techniques absorbed. 3. Grade B half. Half a sword. From scrap to half a legend, and every drop of it stolen from the people who swung at me. Ember screamed with joy. The tide glyph flared on its flank, bright as a coal split open, and it grew before my eyes. Plates broadening, coal seams brighter, the cub filling out towards something with weight. The blade climbed and Ember climbed with it. It always would. Isadora stood empty-handed in her own quarry. The water fell, all of it at once, crashing down the walls and draining away through the old channels until the pit was just wet rock and her, alone in it, staring at her hands. That was mine, she said. Tidebreak was mine. It's kept, I said. It's safe. It just answers to me now. She did not weep. Masters don't. She sat down on the wet stone and looked at the broken blade in my hands like it had taken a limb. In a way it had. The tide had been her whole name. Now it lived in my edge, one spiral among 3. I should have felt cruel. I felt clean. She had swung to guard a thing she loved. I understood that better than anyone alive. I only understood it from the other side of the swing. 3 of 6. I said the count out loud. To no one. Ember bumped my hip and I put my hand on its warm-plated skull, and for one breath the quarry was quiet and the climb was simple. It did not stay simple. The badges came down the quarry stair first. A wall of them, black and steel, hung on a greatcoat with a crimson collar. Marshal Cyrus Delm walked into the drained pit like he owned the water that had just left it. Behind him, a line of sanctioned hunters. Behind them, a woman in a slate-gray clerk's uniform with a teal band on her arm, writing as she walked. Delm did not look at Isadora. He looked at the broken blade, and for the first time I saw a man look at it and understand. Half, he said. His pale eyes went to the sealed crack, the 3 glyphs, the gauge. It reforges by absorption. 1 grade per technique struck at the metal. No cap. He said it flat, like reading a charge sheet. It ate a master signature just now, in front of 40 witnesses. I have the reports. I finally believed them. That was the thing they had all missed. Osgar thought it was a trick. Alice thought it was luck. The crowds thought it was the beast doing the work. Delm was the first enemy who sat down with the reports and did the arithmetic. He had not swung once. He did not intend to. That made him more dangerous than every master combined, because you cannot feed a man who never attacks. Arithmetic is worse than a sword you can drink. You understand it, I said. I understand it as uncapped, unlicensed, and getting stronger while we speak. He drew a folded paper from inside the coat. Wax seal, iron stamp. By artifact law, an unregistered asset that endangers the public may be confiscated pending destruction or licensing. He unfolded it. This is a confiscation order for the weapon you are holding, signed an hour ago in Ironmark Hall. The clerk, Liana, her badge said, stopped writing. Her jaw was tight. So this is how the guild fights, I said. It doesn't swing. We learned. Delm almost smiled. A blade that grows when struck cannot be beaten by striking it. So we don't. We take it under law. Your accounts are frozen as of this signature. Your grade is suspended pending review. Your gate access is revoked across the region. He let each one land. You are, as of an hour ago, the property dispute of the Ironmark Association. Frozen, suspended, revoked. An hour ago I had climbed to half a legend. Now, on paper, I owned nothing and was no one. And I laughed. It came up out of me before I could stop it, low and dry, and it echoed off the wet quarry walls. Delm's hunters shifted. Ember's coals brightened at the sound. You think that's funny, Delm said. I think you're going to send men to take it. I lifted the broken blade so the three glyphs caught the light. Think about what you just told me it does. It grows when it's struck. Every hunter you send to seize this blade is going to have a technique, and the moment one of them swings, I let it hang. I climb again. On your men, you'll army yourself, one confiscation at a time. The line of hunters went very still. One of them, near the back, took a small step away from the front. He had done the arithmetic too. Late, Delm's face did not change, but his hunters had heard it, and Liana had heard it, and every heard thing becomes a rumor by nightfall. He had won the legal round. He held a signed order and a frozen account and a suspended grade. On paper, he had me. And in the same breath, out loud, in front of his own men, he had just been told that seizing the blade was the one act that made it stronger. Come and take it, I said. Please, bring the biggest hunter you have. Bind him, Delm said. Two hunters moved. Ember moved faster. It did not attack. It was a bridge, not a blade. It had never captured or commanded, and it did not start now, but it was hound-sized in all but name, all warm iron and split coals, and it stepped between me and the order, and it took the broken blade from my hand into its jaws, gentle as a mother, and held it, guarding it. It was strong enough to carry it now. The climb had made it ready exactly when I needed it to be. The hunters stopped. You do not lay hands on a beast that is the readout of an uncapped weapon. Stand down, Delm said to them, and to me, this is not over. It has barely begun. There is nowhere in this region you can bank a grade, buy a meal, or pass a gate. We will pressure the family. We will pressure the guilds. We will bleed you off the board without ever swinging at your precious blade. He folded the order back into his coat. Enjoy being half a sword. He turned and climbed the stair, and his hunters went with him, and Isadora sat in the drained pit and did not follow anyone. Liana stayed a moment behind. She pretended to write. She spoke without looking up. He signed the destruction clause, not just the license clause, she said quietly. That means he can move on you at will. And there's a seizure route already drawn. The North Pass gates day after tomorrow at the shift change. That's when they'll try to box you in. She snapped her ledger shut. I log every climb into the official record. Your name is on the guild's own books, at the top no matter what he freezes. I can't stop the order. I can tell you where it's coming from. Why? Because I still think the guild is worth fixing. Her jaw worked. And I can't fix a thing that seizes a boy for getting strong the only way he was ever allowed to. She left. I marked the words. North Pass. Shift change. Day after tomorrow. A leak is a gift and a debt at once. I sat on the whetstone with Ember and the broken blade and did the count that mattered. 3 techniques. Frozen out of every gate. A seizure route drawn against me. Hunted now in a way I could feel in my teeth. I sent word to the one person who might still shield me. I did not have to send far. Isolde found me at the quarry rim by dusk, strawberry blonde braid loose, rose shawl pulled tight against the cold. She had a token from the family gate in her hand, and she was already shaking her head. They know, she said. Father knows the guild has named you, and he, her voice caught. He won't move. The clan won't shield you. I asked him to my face. He said the family cannot stand against an iron mark order for a son they already gave up. Her eyes were wet and furious. For a son they already gave up, like it was settled long ago. It was, I said, the day they left me the broken half. Cade, she gripped my sleeve. Then register the blade. Just that. Give the guild what it wants and the order goes away. You don't have to climb hunted. Her voice dropped. I can't lose you to this. Please, slow down before they corner you somewhere I can't reach. There it was, the first, smallest version of the oldest bait. Not come home, not yet, just stop. Be safe. Let them fold me quietly back into the walls I'd been thrown out of. Half my life, some part of me had wanted exactly that. I looked at the broken blade in Ember's jaws, 3 glyphs deep, and I felt the want turn over in my chest and hold. Not break, hold. No, I said, not like that, not by asking. She let go of my sleeve. She did not agree, but she did not argue either. She looked at Ember, at the broken blade in its jaws, at the 3 glyphs, and something in her face settled. Belief, the stubborn kind, the kind that costs her every time she chooses me over the clan. My sister believed in me. My father would not stand between me and the guild. Both were true at once, and I would carry both up the back half of the climb. The last beast was Soren. I saw him that same night at the Ember Gate from the crowd tiers. He did not see me. He stood in the arena in his silver-white armor, blue sash, the reforged winter edge on his back, the whole ancestral sword, the one they kept, the one I was the broken half of. He was doing a sanctioned clearing for a sponsor, smiling for a board that no longer read him at the top. I could have walked down onto that sand right then. I could have made him swing the winter edge in front of the region. I could have baited the crowned heir the way I baited a tide master, pride, ambush, a word about what he never earned, taken the clan's own legendary technique and broken him publicly, tonight, for everything they did to me in that cold forge. The move was there, clean. I could see the whole shape of it, start to finish, the way I see a strike before it lands. One taunt, one swing, one reforge. The board reading past him forever. And I stood in the tears with the broken blade half reforged, and I did not go down. Because half a sword is not enough to hold the winter edge. Because if I took Soren now, at B, I would spend the one shot on the wrong grade, and the family would call it a fluke, and Delm would seize what was left, because a debt paid early is a debt paid cheap. I watched my brother smile at a crowd that no longer belonged to him, and I let the want burn without spending it. Not yet, I said, low, to Ember, to the broken blade, to the cold. When the blade is whole, he'd climb the back half hunted. The rift front stank of ozone and whetstone. I came up the ridge road at a dead run, the broken blade across my back, Ember bounding at my heel. Behind us, the seizure horns were still calling. They had chased me out of 3 towns in 2 days. I hadn't slept. I hadn't stopped. The whole valley wanted the thing on my back. I told myself it was fine. 3 master glyphs. Grade B. The blade was half reforged and warm against my spine. Warm meant alive. Alive meant we kept moving. Ember chirped a warning half a breath before I saw them. They'd gotten ahead of me. Ironmark enforcers, a dozen of them, fanned across the pass in black and steel coats. And at the center, planted like a boulder that had learned to hate, stood Osgar Mott, the stone master I'd stripped weeks ago. His granite eyes found me and did not blink. There, he said, the scrap-blade boy. I stopped. I put my back to the rock wall and my hand near the blade. Old instinct. Let them swing. Let it land. Drink it. Osgar smiled like he knew the instinct. No, he said. Not this time. That was when I understood the trap. Not one enforcer drew on the blade. Not one aimed a technique at the metal I carried. They'd learned. Word had crossed the whole region now. You don't strike the broken half, you don't feed it. Osgar had lost his signature move to that lesson, and he'd bled the lesson into every hunter here. Take the boy, Osgar said, not the weapon, the boy. A dozen blades turned toward my body. That's the counterplay, and it's an ugly one. A blow to the blade reforges it. A blow to me just kills me. The blade grows, I don't. They'd finally found the seam in the whole miracle, and they were driving a spike straight into it. And the beast, Osgar added. Kill the beast. Ember's coals flared white-hot. The first enforcer lunged, not at the blade, at my ribs, a plain steel thrust meant to end me, nothing for the metal to eat. I twisted off the rock. The point scored my apron and skidded past. 2 more came at once, low and high, both aimed at flesh. I couldn't reforge my way out of this. There was nothing to drink. For the first time since the cold forge, the engine that made me could not save me. I ran. It's not a proud thing to write, but I ran, up the broken scree with a dozen sanctioned hunters at my back and Osgar's voice booming from my head. The blade banged against my spine, useless dead weight in a fight where no one would arm it. That's the cruelty of the whole gift, and the front had learned it. They came with plain steel and snare lines and boots, the boring weapons, the ones a growing blade can't drink. Osgar had turned my own miracle inside out. He couldn't beat the blade, so he'd stopped fighting it. He'd started fighting the boy who carried it, and the boy who carried it was tired and bleeding and running out of ridge. A snare line whistled past my ear. A rock the size of a fist took me in the shoulder and spun me half around. Ember darted between my ankles, flaring, throwing its small light across the path so I could see the loose stone before it took me down. Then the ground under me went to gravel and I fell. I hit hard. The blade slid off my back and clattered down the slope, out of reach, 3 feet, 5 feet, 10, sliding toward the enforcer boots below. An arm's length of half-reforged legend, tumbling into the hands of the people sent to seize it. I lunged for it. A boot caught my wrist. "Got you," said the enforcer, and Ember screamed. I have never heard the sound before or since. It came from inside the little beast, and it did not sound little. The coals along its body cracked open like a furnace door. It grew, right there on the scree, between one heartbeat and the next. The kitten I could cup in 2 hands stretched and swelled and hardened, coal body swelling to the size of a warhound, warm iron plates snapping into place down a spine that ran with molten fuller lines, like a blade forging itself out of a living animal. Master glyphs I had only ever seen on the metal flared to life along its shoulders. 3 of them, mine. The blade's grade had climbed, and Ember had been waiting to climb with it, and it chose now. It came down the slope like a landslide with teeth. The hound reached the blade before the enforcers did. Its jaws closed around the broken half, carried it, cradled it, kept it from every hand that reached, and then it turned its head toward the men on the scree, and it breathed. What came out was a crescent of white vacuum-edged air, wind-cut, Talus Bly's stolen technique. The second glyph, a small copy of it, hound-sized, but it was real. It sheared across the slope and knocked 3 enforcers flat and opened a gap in the line like a scythe through wheat. I got my feet under me. The hound pressed the blade into my hand as it passed, gentle as setting down something it loved, and put its body between me and the pass. "Go," I told it. It went. We broke through the gap together and up over the ridge, and behind us Osgar was roaring at men who could not stand up. The scrap beast had become a weapon. The bridge had become a wall. I ran with the blade whole in my grip and something in my chest I hadn't felt in days. Not hope exactly. A dog that would die for me. That was close enough. We didn't stop until the horns faded. On the far side of the ridge, the land opened into a wide clearing basin, and the basin was full of people, not enforcers. A rift had torn open here, days back. A real one, a bad one. Monsters spilling out of a seam in the world faster than the local hunters could seal it. Crowd tiers had been thrown up around the front the way they always are, because even a disaster draws a gallery in this valley. Hundreds of them. And working the seam, holding the line where lesser hunters had broken, was a man in indigo and silver storm-scale armor with a white-streaked topknot and eyes like live current. Varric Holloway, the Storm Master, Master 4, 4 techniques from 6. One of them was standing right in front of me, holding a rift closed with the lightning that had made him famous. Ember's coals brightened. It knew what I knew. I stepped down into the basin, into the light of the grade board bolted above the crowd tier, and every rank tracker in the region lit my badge as I passed under it. The board ticked. B. Cade Vinter. B. The crowd's heads turned the way heads always turn to a name they've heard cursed on the horns. "That's him," someone said. "That's the one the guild wants." Varek felt the shift in the crowd before he saw me. He turned, current crawling off his shoulders, and took me in. The ash-silver hair, the ember-orange scarf, the broken blade, the warhound of living coal at my side. "You," he said, "you're the seam they can't close, the blade that eats us. I'm here for your storm," I said. "That's all." "For my storm," he repeated, and something in him went cold and offended. "Boys who want my storm get it, all of it. Everyone before you is a scorch mark on that rock." That was the whole of the bait, and he'd walked into it without me lifting a finger. This is the craft now, not swinging first, but making them want to swing. The starving front had made me a fisherman. I'd learned to hang out the one thing a proud man can't leave alone, the idea that some scrap-blade child thinks he can take what defines you. Oscar refused the hook. Isadora tried to. Varric Holloway had held this front for 9 years and had never once been told a boy would take his lightning, and his pride was louder than his sense. He laughed, short and hard. He lifted his hand and the sky answered. Then choke on it, he said. I did not dodge. I did not parry. I planted my feet the way I'd planted them since the cold forge, and I brought the broken blade up into the path of the lance, and I let it land. Stormpierce hit the metal. A column of white lightning, a master's whole signature poured into one strike, drove down onto the broken half, and the world went silent and blind. I felt it in my teeth, in the healed burn line on my forearm, and the roots of my hair. The blade took it. The blade drank it. Down its length, a fourth glyph seared itself into being, grander than the three before, and the metal shivered and stretched and retempered along its whole broken edge, longer, keener, the crack in it closing another inch toward whole. The forge gauge along the flat rewrote itself. Techniques absorbed for grade A. Grade A, in front of a rift, in front of hundreds, in front of a master standing empty-handed and blinking at the place where his lightning used to live. My storm, Varric said, his voice gone thin and disbelieving. He's got my storm, it answers to him now. Ember threw back its head and a small copy of the lance crackled off its shoulder glyph into the sky. The crowd flinched. Then, the way a rift-front crowd does, they looked from the disarmed master to the boy who disarmed him, and the sound they made was not the sound I braced for. They cheered. I stood there stupidly for a second, not understanding it. I'd been booed off 3 clearings in my life. I'd been called scrap, called joke, called the thing they should have melted down. I did not have a shelf in my head for the noise a crowd makes when it decides to love the one the powerful are hunting. The guild wants that blade, a woman near the rail shouted, and look what it just did, it closed a master. He's F rank, someone else yelled, and got shouted down, by strangers. He's not F rank now, is he? The woman said. Ironmark can't beat him, so they want to lock him up. Cast off my eye. That boy's the best thing to walk this front all week. The horn started again, far off. The enforcers had found the ridge, and the crowd, this is the part I keep, the crowd closed up behind me between the horns and the basin, not a wall of hunters, just people, just farmers and vendors and off-shift laborers who'd come to watch a rift and stayed to watch a legend, and they did not move to let the guild through. The seizure order had made me a criminal. The crowd had just made me theirs. A month ago that noise would have undone me. I'd have drunk it like the blade drinks lightning and hated how much I needed it. I caught myself reaching for it now, that hunger to be told I was worth something, and I made myself set it down. Their cheer was as much a verdict as my father's had been, a better verdict, but still someone else's number, printed over my head, that I did not choose. I stored that thought away and kept walking. It would matter, at the top of the ridge, more than I knew. Varric didn't come after me. He sat down on a stone at the edge of his own front, staring at his hand, and let me walk. A master too gutted to fight and a rift half sealed behind him. I felt something for him I didn't have a name for. Later I'd learn the name. Not yet. I climbed out of the basin the far side, the blade warm and grayed. A across my back now, the hound at my heel, the cheering still rolling up the slope behind me like weather. He was waiting at the top. White and gold coat, green trim, dark teal black hair spiked into an undercut, acid green eyes bright with a hunger I recognized because I'd worn it once, Nils Harrow, the sanctioned prodigy. The golden boy who had sneered at me from the stands the day I was still nothing, and who had come again to put me back in my place. Vinter, he said, you've had a run. Move, Nils. They'll give me a commendation for this, he said, and he was smiling, but the smile had no floor under it. The prodigy who brought in the cast-off. Do you know what that does for my rank? Do you know what the board says about me after this? And there it was, the whole of him in one sentence. Not I want to stop you, not you're dangerous, what the board says about me. He had a sky's worth of talent and he'd spent every drop of it on a number over his own head. You're going to strike the blade, I said. Aren't you? His hand was already glowing. I'm going to strike you, he said. Everyone knows the trick now. The body. Ah. The beast. His eyes flicked to Ember and his throat moved. I'll take the beast first. He lunged for Ember. He never reached it. The hound didn't so much as growl. It simply breathed, and a hound-sized fork of Storm Pierce, the lightning I'd owned for all of 10 minutes, cracked across Nils's path and threw him back onto the stone. His coat smoked. His acid green eyes were wide and white-rimmed, and for 1 second, purely afraid, I stood over him. I could have ended it. The whole valley would have cheered. I looked at him instead. Hollow-eyed, bleeding status from a wound the board had cut in him years ago, defined so completely by a number over his head that he'd throw his life at a warhound of living coal for a commendation. And I felt the pity land, and behind the pity, worse, I felt the recognition. Because I knew him. I'd knelt in a cold forge measuring my whole worth by what a family board said I was. I'd wanted them to take it back. I'd climbed 6 weeks and 4 masters chasing the moment they'd finally look at me and print a better number. That was the same wound. That was the same emptiness. Nils was just further down the road I was on. The road where you win the whole board and it eats you anyway. I didn't want to be him. I didn't want to be enthroned on the ladder. I wanted to be off it. The thought went through me quiet and total, like a break finally cooling true. I hadn't come all this way to make my father crown me instead of Soren. Let them keep their crown. Let them keep their board. The blade grew by being struck, and so had I, and my worth had never once been theirs to assign, not the guilds, not the families, not this poor hollow boys on the stone. You could stop, I told Nils. You don't have to be this. He stared at me like I'd spoken a language he'd never learned. I left him there. The horns were closing. The crowd was still at my back. Ember pressed against my leg, grade A and burning, and above the basin, the great grade board had already rewritten my name in the light where the whole region could read it. The board said, A, 2 ranks left. And for the first time, I understood that I wanted to be free of it. The whole region had come to watch me lose the next one. They built the Frostmaster's clearing like a title fight. Tiered stands ringed a floor of raked white sand. A live gray board hung above it, my rank burning where everyone could see. The crowd came for one reason. A cast-off had climbed to A on stolen moves, and now he had to face Neve Ostrand. I stood at the mouth of the gate and let the noise wash over me. It did not sound like mockery anymore. Somewhere in the middle tiers a man was chanting my name. 6 weeks ago, that same voice would have told me to go home and sweep the forge. Ember pressed against my leg. Hound-sized now, a half-forged blade given 4 legs, molten fuller lines running down its spine. Master glyphs glowed on its shoulders. 4 of them, matching the 4 etched along the broken blade at my hip. It flared toward the arena, warning me, the way it always did before a technique. I know, I said. She's already here. Neve Ostrand walked out across the sand. Frost-white hair, long and straight, a coat lined with pale fur, silver clasps catching the light. The cold came off her before she spoke, a skin of frost spreading under her boots. She was 30, and she had never lost a clearing. Then I made the mistake of looking up. 2 seats in the high gallery, reserved. Deep green robe, iron gray hair, hard gray-green eyes. My father. Beside him, strawberry blonde braid and a soft rose shawl, Isolde. My sister had come, and she had not chosen to sit there. The clan had put them in the front of the region's biggest clearing and made them watch. My chest went tight in a way no strike had ever managed. Emery's Vinter did not look away. That was the cruel part. The man who priced me below scrap metal sat with his hands folded and made himself watch the sun he threw out stand where the region's eyes were. He was not proud. He was not sorry. He was afraid, and he had learned to sit very still with it. Isolde found my face across the sand. She pressed 2 fingers to her own chest, the old sign from the forge house, the one that meant I'm still here. My throat closed. Cade Vinter. Neve's voice cut the cold. You let techniques land. I've watched the recordings. Her breath fogged. So I'm not going to give you a clean one. I'm going to freeze you where you stand and then find out if metal can drink a corpse. People keep telling me what they'll do, I said. Then they swing. The board flickered. Somewhere, Liana Bear was logging this. Her teal armband bright in the official's box, making sure whatever happened here went on the record with my name on it. Neve raised one hand. The sand went white. She opened with common frost first, testing, a lance of ice, fast and thin. I let it hit the metal. The broken blade drank it, a small glyph flaring, nothing that moved the rank, just fuel, just a taste. The crowd gasped anyway, because they had never seen a man welcome a spear of ice into his own edge and smile. Stubborn, she said. Efficient, I answered. I did not chase her. That was the whole trick, the one the smart ones had learned to starve. She wanted me to lunge so she could keep her signature move in reserve. So I stood. I planted my feet in the raked sand and let the cold gnaw my hands, and I waited, because a man who refuses to attack forces the master to. Above us, my father watched me refuse to move. I wondered if he remembered teaching me that. Feet first, boy. A blade is only as steady as the man behind it. He had beaten it into me before he decided I was worth nothing. Now it was keeping his discarded son alive on live sand. Neve's patience broke before mine. Fine, she hissed. Freeze. Her hands came together. The air screamed. This was Winterjaw. The move that had made her a legend, a snap of absolute cold shaped like a set of closing teeth. It came for me across the sand in a white blur, and it was not a lance now, it was a mouth, and it meant to bite me in half. Ember roared and flared, throwing its warning wide. I brought the broken half of the sword up into the teeth, into them, not across, not away. I planted it in the path of the bite, and I did not flinch. Winterjaw closed on the metal. The cold hit me like a wall. It went up my arm and past my elbow, and I felt my heartbeat stagger. For one long breath, the whole arena went silent and white, and I thought, this is the one that's a half beat too slow. This is the one that kills me. Then the broken blade drank. The teeth of the freezing snap poured off the sand and into the edge. Frost peeled backward toward the metal like a tide reversing. A fifth master glyph carved itself down the growing blade, grander than the others, wreathed in living cold, and the whole broken half sang out longer and keener than it had ever been. Near legendary, I could feel it. The metal was almost whole. The board threw a new number over the arena, A Master 5 of 6. Ember screamed with me, and its body blazed up to a scale I had never seen it reach, molten and vast beside me, master glyphs burning on its shoulders in answer. Not legendary yet, near it. Close enough that the front rows recoiled from the heat. Neve Ostrin stood in the wreck of her own signature move with empty hands. She flexed them, reached for the cold that had defined her for a decade. It did not come. She snapped her fingers the way she must have 1,000 times, and no teeth of frost answered. It lived in my edge now, mine, credited on the board with my name for the whole region to read. I felt the sensation crawl back into my dead arm. The near legendary blade hummed against my palm, warm where it had been freezing, and I understood I had just walked out the far side of the strike that was supposed to kill me. A half beat slower, and the sand would have my body on it. I had bet my life on a broken half of a sword again, and again it had held. It's gone, she said. Not to me, to herself. My Winterjaw? It's in the scrap. It's not scrap, I said quietly. It never was. The crowd came apart. They were on their feet, and they were roaring, and this time there was no confusion in it. A discarded boy had taken a freezing master's signature move onto a broken blade in front of the region, and they had watched every frame of it, and they knew exactly who had done it. I did not look at the board. I looked at the high gallery. My father had come out of his seat, not to leave. He was gripping the rail with both hands, staring at the near-legendary blade in his son's grip, and for the first time in my life I could not read his face. That was when Isolde came down onto the sand. She should not have. Officials moved to stop her and then saw whose daughter she was and let her pass. She crossed the white sand in her cream dress with the frost still steaming off it, and she stopped a body's length from me, and her hazel eyes were wet. Cade, her voice shook. Stop, please. You've made your point. You've made it 100 times over. I'm 2 ranks from the top, Isolde. I know. She pressed her hands together. That's why I'm asking. They sent me down here because they knew you'd listen to me and no one else. A tear went sideways in the cold. Father is offering it back, all of it, the name, your place, a room in the forge house. Quiet, no ceremony, no one has to say who was wrong. You just come home tonight, and it stops. The arena could not hear her. But every eye was on us, the cast-off and the sister, on the white sand under my name, and there it was, the exact thing I had wanted, from the exact people, arriving in the exact shape I had begged the dark for on my knees in a cold forge. Come home, take the name back, be a Vinter again. I felt the want rise in me like heat. Say yes. Isolde whispered. Please, I never agreed with them, not for one day, you know I didn't. I slipped you the token. I told you where the guild was moving. I did all of it because I believed you'd win, and you have. So win by coming home. Don't win by dying on this sand for a rank. Ember made a low sound, not a growl, almost grief. I understood then what the family had actually done. They had not offered me my place. They had offered to buy the one thing I could not fight through. Because if I said no to the name, I said no in front of Isolde, and she would have to go back up those stairs and sit beside the man she had defied for me, and every climb after this would cost her a little more standing in a house that already watched her too closely. To finish the climb, I might lose her, the only relative who had ever reached back. Isolde, my voice came out wrecked. If I come home now, what am I? I'm the son they took back because I got strong, not the son they should never have thrown out. I'd spend the rest of my life saying thank you for a chair at their table. You'd have me, she said. I have you now. I looked at the blade, near whole and singing, and then at her wet, furious face, and the two things would not fit in the same hand. I have you standing on this sand telling me to quit before the last two ranks kill me. That's not a small thing to throw away for a number. Don't think I don't know that. I made myself say the rest. And if I stop, I've let them decide again. First they said I was worth nothing. Now they'd get to say I'm worth something. Same hand, same verdict. I don't want their verdict anymore, Isolde. I want to stop needing it. She flinched like I'd struck her. So the rank matters more than me, she said. Not cruel, just breaking. No. I couldn't touch her. The frost still smoking off me would have burned. You matter more than anything they own. That's why I can't let them use you to leash me. Don't make me choose between being whole and keeping you. Please, don't. But I had already seen it, and so had she. The choice was on the table whether I named it or not. Her face closed over, the way our fathers did, and I hated that they had taught her that too. I have to go back up there, she said. They're watching. I know. I'm not giving up on you. Her chin came up, wet and furious. But I don't know how to want two things that can't both be true, neither did I. I let her walk back across the sand, and I did not stop her, and it was the hardest thing I had done since I knelt alone in that forge and decided to live. The crowd, seeing only a sister and a brother, roared their approval. They thought they had watched a reunion. They had watched something tear. I climbed the gate ramp toward the tunnels with Ember pressed hard against me, and that was where my father found me. He was alone. He had come down through the officials' passage, away from the cameras, away from Soren's people, and he stood in the mouth of the tunnel in his green robe looking smaller than I had ever let myself see him. That was Ostrin's Winterjaw, he said. I saw it die into your blade. You did. Emery's Winter looked at the near-legendary edge at my hip, and then at Ember towering warm beside me, and then at my face. His jaw worked. Whatever he had rehearsed on the walk down, it did not survive the sight of me. The break, he said at last. His voice was not the verdict giver's voice, it was quieter. When we split the ancestral sword, I told them to sweep your half into the slag. Your grandfather's forge master wouldn't do it. He set it in your hands instead. He stopped. His gray-green eyes were doing something I had never once seen them do. I have wondered, these past weeks, whether the old man saw something I did not. I said nothing. I did not trust my mouth. If you came back, Emery said, and there it was, the crack, the smallest opening in the man who had sealed my whole childhood shut. I would not stand in the way of it. I think I would be glad of it. The verdict giver had blinked first. My father, the wall my entire want had thrown itself against for 19 years, stood in a tunnel and told his discarded son he would be glad to have him home. And God's help me, part of me wanted to drop the blade and be a boy again. I let the silence stretch. I did not say yes. I did not say no, because if I said either, I would be answering him, and answering him was the same trap Isolde had begged me into wearing a kinder face. I was done letting Emery's Vinter's opinion of me be the axis my whole life turned on. You'll be glad, I said finally, or you'll be afraid. You don't know which yet. Come and tell me when you do. I walked past him into the dark. He did not follow. I did not look back to see his face because I was not sure I could keep walking if I did. That should have been the worst of it. It wasn't. Surprise. Because Soren had been watching all of it. I heard about it before I reached the tunnel's end from Liana, who slipped out of the official's passage white-faced with her record slate clutched to her chest. Cade, your brother. She caught my arm. He saw Neve fall. He saw the board. He saw your father go down that tunnel and Kate, he's not amused anymore. He's not even angry. He's calm. That's worse. What did he do? He recalled the reforging masters to the clan hall tonight. Her brown eyes were huge. He's done letting his friends test you. He's done letting the guild handle it. He told the whole circle that no confiscation order and no master is going to stop you, that the only thing left in the region strong enough to end this is the family's own sword. She swallowed. He's going to come at you himself, with the full winter edge. The tunnel went cold in a way that had nothing to do with frost. I had 5 master glyphs on a near-legendary blade, 1 rank from whole, 1 master left on the board, and a brother who had finally understood that every enemy who struck me had only made me stronger, and had decided, in his desperation, to be the one who struck hardest of all, the clan's own legendary sword, the reforged SSS edge they had crowned him with over my broken half. The very move the whole betrayal had been built to keep out of my hands. Soren was going to swing it at me himself, the family's own legendary move, about to be donated, and to become whole, I might lose her. The apex clearing sat on a shelf of bare mountain rock. Wind scoured it flat. 1,000 people ringed the crowd tiers, and the live grade board burned against the gray sky. My name sat 1 rung below the top. Ember stood at my shoulder. Hound-shaped, molten fuller lines running down its spine. The broken blade hummed in my hand. 5 master glyphs glowed along its edge. I had walked up here to finish it. I did not expect an army. They were waiting in the clearing when I crested the last step. Marshal Delm stood at the center in his black and steel greatcoat, the crimson collar high at his throat. A wall of iron-mark enforcers fanned out behind him, and beside Delm, arms folded, stood the region's apex master, Castor Ray, deep violet black hair tied back, gold eyes ringed with violet, a deep purple mantle snapping in the wind. Cade Vinter, Delm said. His pale eyes did not blink. Under artifact law, the weapon in your hand is seized property of the Ironmark Association. It's not property, I said. It's mine. It answers to no license. That makes it a danger. He lifted 1 gloved hand. Master Ray has agreed to disarm you, quietly, if you allow it. So this was the trap, not a clean arrest, a killing dressed as a reclaim. Bring the strongest man in the valley to break the boy who could not be broken by paperwork. I almost laughed. They had spent all story learning not to strike the blade. And now, to take it, they had brought the one man whose strike would complete it. Castor stepped forward, the rock under his boots dimmed. Light bent around him, curving toward his body like water down a drain. You don't understand what I hold, he said. His voice was calm, almost kind. No one has ever stood in front of Riftfall and lived. I would rather you knelt. I know exactly what you hold, I said. That's why I came. Ember's coals flared hot beside me. Its plating rang like struck iron. I set my feet on the stone and planted them, the way I always did. I did not raise the blade to guard. I lowered it, edge out, into the open. Isolde's voice cut across the tiers. Hey, don't. I found her in the gallery. Strawberry blonde braid, rose shawl, hands white on the rail. My father beside her, iron gray, still as stone, and 2 rows down in polished silver-white armor, my brother, Soren. His steel blue eyes fixed on me, and for once there was no amusement in them, only fear. They had all come to watch me die. They were going to watch something else. Castor raised both hands over his head. The sky above the clearing folded. It was the only word for it. The gray light collapsing inward to a single burning point, a well of crushing brightness that pulled the wind screaming toward it. My ears popped. Loose grit lifted off the rock and streamed upward into that point of light. The whole world leaned toward Castor's palms. Rift fall, he said softly, and he brought his hands down. The well came down on me like a mountain falling, not fast, worse than fast, heavy. The air itself turned to lead and drove the light into a spear aimed at the crown of my skull. I heard the tears gasp. I heard Isolde scream my name. I held the broken blade up into it. The light struck the metal. For 1 heartbeat, it was agony. The gravity well tried to drink me the way the blade drinks a technique. My knees buckled, the rock cracked white under my boots, blood started from my nose. The broken blade screamed in my grip, red hot, then white hot, then a color that has no name. I could not have dropped it if I wanted to. The well was pouring into it, all that crushing light, all that stolen sky, funneling down through the edge and into the metal. I held on. That was the whole trick. That was always the whole trick. Don't dodge. Don't flinch. Take the hit and hold. My arms shook. The rock split in a ring around my boots. I felt the burn line on my forearm, the old scar from the very first strike I ever took, and I remembered kneeling in the cold forge with the dull broken half in my hands. Everyone had gone home. My family had priced me below sweepings, and I had smiled because only I knew what the blade did. I knew what it did. The blade drank Riftfall whole, the collapsing well guttered out, the sky snapped back to gray. And along the broken half of the sword a sixth glyph ignited. Grander than the rest, a spiral of light and weight burned into the steel. All six master glyphs blazed at once. Stone, wind, tide, storm, frost, and now the apex, gravity and light living in my edge. 6 of 6. The roadmap closed. The forge gauge on the flat of the blade ticked over. Techniques absorbed, 6 masters. Grade, A. Still, A. Not yet whole. One strike short of the top, and the well of light that should have killed me now curled inside my broken blade like a caught star. Master Ray stared at his own empty hands. His gold eyes were wide, his mantle hung dead in the still air. That's not possible, he whispered. Riftfall is gone. It's not in me. It's in that. A master just lost his signature move to a cast-off, someone said in the tears. The words carried. Nah. Then 100 voices took them up. Delm's face had gone the color of ash. He understood, finally and completely, what he had done. He had brought the biggest attacker in the valley to strike the one blade that grew by being struck. He had armed the very thing he came to seize. His reclaim was standing in front of him, glowing, one grade from unstoppable. Fall back, Delm said, his voice cracked. Enforcers, fall back. But it was too late for orders. It had been too late the moment Castor swung. I straightened. Wiped the blood from my lip with the back of my hand. Ember let out a low sound like a furnace door opening, and the crowd nearest it stumbled back. 5 master glyphs already burned on the hound's shoulders. The 6th was flickering, trying to catch. I looked up at the gallery, at my brother. Soren was already moving. He came down over the crowd tier rail in a single vault, silver armor flashing, the royal blue sash streaming behind him. And in his hands, drawn and burning cold white, was the sword, the whole one, the reforged SSS Winter Edge, the ancestral blade they had made for him out of the same steel they broke off and threw at me. Soren, no! Our father was on his feet now. Don't strike it. That's what feeds it. But my brother wasn't listening anymore. He had spent his whole life being told he was the strong one, the chosen one, the true Vinter, and he had just watched the boy they threw away eat the strongest technique in the region and stand back up. Everything he was built on was cracking in front of 1,000 witnesses. There was only one thing left in him. You were nothing, Soren said. His voice shook, his eyes were wet. You were a scrap on the anvil. I will not be eclipsed by garbage. He raised the Vinter Edge over his head. It sang. The whole valley knew that sound. The clan's one legendary move, the strike that had closed 100 rifts, the reason our family mattered at all. I could have stepped aside. I saw it clear as glass. He was wild, off balance, all rage and no craft. One step left and the edge buries itself in the rock and he's on his knees at my feet. I didn't step aside. I lowered the broken blade into the path of the falling sword, and I looked my brother in the eyes. Thank you, I said. The Vinter Edge came down and struck the broken half of the sword. The sound was not a clang. It was a chord. Every bell in the world rung at once, so pure it stopped the wind. White light bloomed out from the point of contact and washed over the whole clearing, over the tiers, over the gallery, over Soren's disbelieving face an arm's length from mine. The clan's SSS technique poured out of the edge and into my broken blade. And where every other absorption had etched a new glyph, this one did something no absorption had done before. It made the blade whole. I felt it climb up through the metal from the break, the cracked ceiling, the dull edge filling out, the broken half growing long and keen and complete in my hand, all 6 master glyphs and 100 common ones lighting up its length like a river catching fire. The forge gauge spun and stopped. Grade SSS. The broken half was not broken anymore. It was the whole sword, the real one. Reforged from the scrap they left smoking on the anvil, finished by the very edge they crowned my brother with. Soren stumbled back. The Vinter Edge in his hands had gone gray and quiet. Cold steel, nothing more. The move that made it legendary was mine now, burning in a blade the family had priced below sweepings, and ember rose. The hound shape at my side unfolded. It did not grow, it erupted, coals to running lava, iron plates spreading into a great beast of reforged steel, twice the height of a man, 6 master glyphs blazing along its flanks in perfect time with the blade. A legend. The thing the hook promised in the cold forge, standing now on the apex rock, amber eyes blazing, forge smoke pouring from its jaws. The living proof, in creature form, that the scrap had become a legend. For a long moment, nobody in the whole clearing moved, 1,000 people and not one sound. Then I turned and looked at them, my father, my brother, the marshal, one by one. And I watched it land. I watched my father understand. Emery's Vinter, who had looked at me across a cold anvil and decided I was worth less than a scrap of metal. I watched him look at the whole SSS blade in my hand and the legendary beast at my side and finally, fully, know what he had thrown away. His face crumpled. Not with anger, with the particular horror of a man who realizes too late that his own judgment was the fraud he feared most. I watched Soren understand. He was on his knees on the rock, the dead gray edge fallen beside him, staring at the sword I held. His whole life had been an inheritance he never earned. Mine had been earned one strike at a time in front of everyone, and now the whole valley could see the difference, and so could he. His mouth worked. No sound came out. I watched Delm understand. The marshal who moved only by artifact law, who called an uncapped blade a public danger. He understood that the danger had a name now, and it was written on the grade board over his head, one rung higher than it had ever been. There was no confiscation order in the world that could hold an SSS blade that answered to no one. His clock had run out. His reclaim was a corpse standing on the rock. They had thrown me away because they thought the scrap was worthless. The scrap was the one blade in the world that grows stronger the more it is struck, and they had spent all story striking it. They finally understood. Too late. The enforcers moved first because fear moves before thought. A dozen of them broke toward me at once, blades and techniques rising, a last desperate grab at the thing their marshal wanted. Delm shouted for them to stop. They didn't hear him either. I didn't raise the SSS blade to cut them down. I didn't have to. Ember stepped in front of me. The legendary forge beast opened its jaws, and the 6 master glyphs on its body flared, and it breathed, not fire, but a wall of the blade's stored techniques, gravity and wind and frost braided into one soundless pulse that rolled across the clearing and simply pushed. The enforcers left their feet. They tumbled backward across the rock, weapons spinning from their hands, and came to rest in a groaning heap against the crowd tier wall, winded, disarmed, alive, not one of them bleeding, not one of them cut. A hush fell where the roar had been. 1,000 people had come up the mountain to watch an SSS master execute a cast-off. They had watched the cast-off take the killing blow and stand. They had watched the killing blow become his. And now they watched a legendary beast disarm a dozen armed enforcers and leave every one of them breathing on the rock. I could have ended them. Everyone watching knew it. That was the point. Power isn't the killing blow. Power is standing over a dozen people who came to take everything from you and choosing to let them breathe. The tears erupted, 1,000 voices at once, a roar that bounced off the mountain and rolled down into the valley. My name in it. Cade, the cast-off, the scrap, the boy they threw away, standing on the apex rock with the whole sword and the legendary beast, and not a single body on the ground. Delm sank to one knee among his scattered enforcers. He wasn't reaching for a weapon. He was reaching for the recording glass on his gray coat, the official iron mark register, the one that logs every ranked hunter in the valley. His hands were shaking, because there was only one thing left for the marshal to do with an SSS asset he could not seize, and it was to write the name down. I looked back up at the gallery one last time. Isolde was crying, but she was smiling through it, both hands pressed to her mouth, and when our eyes met she nodded, fierce, certain, the way she had nodded at me across a dozen clearings when nobody else in the family would meet my eyes. Her belief in me had cost her everything in the clan, and it had just been vindicated in front of the whole region. My father took one step toward the rail. His mouth opened. I could see the shape of the words forming, the words I had wanted to hear my entire life. Come back. Come home. You're a Vinter after all. I didn't answer him. Not yet. Because I finally understood something too. Standing on that rock with the wind cutting past and the roar washing over me and the whole sword warm and complete in my hand. I didn't need him to say it anymore. The wanting had driven me up the whole ladder, F to E to D, one master to the next, all the way here, and somewhere on the climb, without noticing, I had stopped climbing for them. The blade grew by being struck, so did I. My worth was never the anvils to price, never emeries to assign, never the boards to print. It was mine. It had always been mine. Ember settled against my side, warm as banked coals, 6 glyphs dimming to an even glow. The crowd chanted my name into the gray sky. Below me, my brother knelt in silver armor beside a sword that meant nothing now. Above me, my father stood with the welcome half-spoken on his lips. It was over. What was left was the choosing. The clearing had gone quiet, the way a forge goes quiet when the hammer stops. Everyone was still there. Nobody was moving. I stood at the center of the apex ring with the whole blade in my hand. 6 master glyphs ran down its length, alive, breathing light, ember pressed warm against my leg, no longer a kitten, no longer a hound. A legend now, reforged steel and running lava seams, 6 glyphs burning along its flanks in time with mine. The enforcers who had come to take it back stood at the edge of the ring. None of them raised a hand. They had seen what happened when a technique landed on this metal. Nobody wanted to arm it further. Marshal Cyrus Delm walked out to meet me. His greatcoat still hung heavy with badges. His pale, ice-gray eyes were not angry. They were doing arithmetic. "You can't seize it," I said. I said it quietly. I did not need to be loud anymore. "No." He almost smiled. "The moment we strike it, it grows. The moment we don't, it answers to no one." He looked at the blade a long moment. "An uncatalogued weapon with no cap and no license. That is exactly the thing the Iron Mark exists to control." "Then control it the only way that's left," I said. "Write it down." That landed. He understood before I finished the sentence. He turned to the officers at the crowd tier and lifted 2 fingers. A clerk came forward. Chestnut hair and a bob. Teal armband, a ledger open in her arms. Liana Bear had logged every climb I ever made. DC. She had entered them all while the guild pretended not to see. "Marshal," she said, "the record still has him listed as an unregistered asset." "Then fix the record." Delm's voice was flat and final. "In full, in front of the region." Liana looked at me. There was something in her face I had not seen on an Iron Mark uniform before. Relief. She had wanted to reform the guild from inside, not burn it down, and here it was, reforming, one honest line at a time. She crossed to the live grade board at the head of the ring. It had ticked up all story long, past E, past D, past ranks that were supposed to take a decade each. For years, the top slot had read one name: Soren Vinter, the crowned heir, the sanctioned champion. Liana reached up and cleared it. The board went dark for one heartbeat. The whole clearing held its breath. Then a single name burned to the top in guild white letters, and the forge gauge along my blade answered it glyph for glyph. Cade Vinter. Grade SSS. At the top, where the crown had been. The crowd made a sound I will not forget. Not a cheer at first, a gasp, the kind that runs through a body before the mind catches up. Then the roar came, and it kept coming, and it did not stop. "The board's reading his name," someone said near the front over and over, like they had to hear themselves say it to believe it. "The board is reading his name." Near the ropes I saw the ones who had mocked me longest, the ones who called the blade scrap, who told me to sweep myself up with the slag. They were not laughing now. Some of them could not look at the board at all. A few of them, quiet, began to clap, not because they had ever believed, because the light had made them. I looked at that name a long time. For 11 years I had wanted it. I had knelt in a cold forge and sworn I would make them put my name where it belonged. Now it was there, in light witnessed by the entire region, entered on the guild's own paper. I felt it settle, and then I felt something stranger. It was smaller than I had expected. It was true, and it was mine, and it changed nothing about who I already was. Liana closed her ledger. "It's official," she said. "It's done. The paperwork, half of everything I had bled for, finished with a clerk's steady hand." She met my eyes and gave the smallest nod. Her guild had told the truth for once, and she was the one who made it. The seizure order that had hunted me for half the story was ash now. There was nothing left to reclaim. There was only a name at the top of a board and a name on a page, matching at last. Then the crowd shifted and it parted, and my father walked into the ring. Emery's Vinter, iron-gray hair receding, the deep green clan robe with the bronze clasps he wore for the cameras. His hard, gray-green eyes were not hard now. He had been made to stand in that gallery and watch his discarded son climb past his crowned one, and it had broken something in the face he used to rule with. Behind him, Soren stood where he had fallen, champion no more, his own legendary edge gone into my blade, his silver-white armor scuffed with the dust of the ring. He did not look at me, he looked at the ground. He had built his whole self on being the Vinter, and he had handed me the last piece I needed to prove he never earned it. Emery stopped a few feet away. He looked at the blade. He looked at Ember. He looked, last, at me. Cade. My name in his mouth. He had not said it since the day he priced me below scrap. The clearing went silent again to hear him. I was wrong. He said it loudly. He said it so the region would carry it. A patriarch does not confess in a whisper, he confesses in public or it does not count, and he knew that better than anyone. We reforged the ancestral sword for your brother. We left you the broken half and called it worthless. We looked at you and we decided what you were worth. His jaw worked. We were wrong. You are the greatest hunter this clan has ever produced, and we threw you out with the slag. He drew a breath. Come home. Take your place. The Vinter name is yours. The seat, the forge, all of it. Let me make it right. Come back to your family. There it was. The thing I had chased since the first page of my life. The verdict reversed. The man who disowned me on a public stage begging me to return. Isolde stood at the edge of the ring, strawberry blonde braid, rose shawl, 16 and steady. She had slipped me warnings when it cost her everything. She had begged me once to reconcile, had threatened to walk away from me if I would not try. She was watching me now with her hands pressed together, and I understood that whatever I said next would decide more than my own future. I looked at my father's open hand. A year ago, I would have taken it before he finished the sentence. I would have wept and taken it. That was the whole shape of me once. A boy waiting for these people to tell him he was allowed to exist. I knew, standing there, that if I put my hand in his, I would be handing him something back, not my blade. The one thing worse, I would be handing him the right to decide my worth again. If his welcome could lift me up, then his verdict had been real, and one word from him could still put me back down. To take the welcome was to agree that they had ever owned the scale. Ember pressed against my leg, warm as a banged coal. I thought of Nils Harrow, the golden boy who could never stop chasing the board, who was nothing without the rank printed on his badge. I had almost become him. A man who lets the scale decide him is owned by whoever holds the scale. The blade grew by being struck. It did not grow by being praised. Every rank I climbed off a blow somebody meant to break me with. My worth was never in the crowd's roar or the board's light or this man's outstretched hand. It was in the standing still. It was in not flinching. It was mine before any of them looked up, and it would be mine when they all looked away again. No, I said. The word was quiet. It carried anyway. Emery's blinked. Cade, you didn't crown Soren because he was worthy. I was not angry. That surprised me most of all. You crowned him because it was easy, and you threw me out because it was easy. That was the whole of it. Not strength, not merit, convenience. I let it sit. I don't need you to take it back. Taking it back means you still get to decide. You don't. You never did. I just believed you for a while. His hand lowered. I'm not worth less than a scrap of metal, I said. And I'm not worth more because a board says so, or because you finally say so. I was never yours to price. That's the part you got wrong. That's the part I got wrong too for a long time. I looked at the whole blade in my hand, 6 glyphs burning. Keep the forge, keep the seat, keep the name if it comforts you. I said it gently because I no longer needed it to wound. I'll make my own. Soren looked up then. Just once. Whatever he saw on my face, he did not challenge it. There was nothing left in him to challenge with. His edge lived in my blade now, and we both knew a thing that the crowd would take years to understand, that he had never been the strong one, and that the family had crowned a boy who knew it. Emery stood there with his empty hand. He had come to give a verdict, one last time, dressed as an apology. And for the first time in his life, the son he was judging did not need the ruling. Then Isolde crossed the ring. She did not go to our father. She walked past him, past Soren, past the whole watching clan, and she stopped at my side. She turned to face them all, every Vinter, the guild, the region, and she took her place next to the brother they had thrown away. I never agreed with what we did, she said, and her voice shook and held. I said so when I was too small to matter. I'm saying it now. She looked at Emery's. You can keep the name. I'm going with him. The cost of that was written plain on her face. Her standing in the clan, her inheritance, the only family she had. She set it down to stand beside me, and she did not look back to see who noticed. I had spent the whole climb afraid the price of walking away would be losing her too. That every step toward my own worth was a step away from the one person who had believed in me. I had carried that fear through 6 masters and a guild that wanted me caged. Here was the answer, given freely, in front of everyone. She had believed in me before there was anything to believe. She was not choosing a champion, she was choosing her brother. I put my hand on her shoulder. Ember leaned its great warm head against her, and she laughed, wet-eyed, and touched the running lava seam along its neck. Come on, I said, there's nothing left to win here. We walked out of the apex ring together, the 3 of us, while the board still burned my name into the dark and the region still roared. I did not look back at the crowd. I had spent 11 years performing for people who looked at me and saw a scrap. I was finished performing. The roar faded behind us like weather. Dawn came to the old forge the way it always had. I opened the door on the cold black anvil and the banked coals, and the still smoking break in the stone where they had split the ancestral sword and left me the worthless half. This was where it started. On my knees, alone, holding cracked metal worth less than the slag they swept up, I laid the blade on the anvil. Whole, now. Complete, tempered, keen, 6 master glyphs sleeping quiet along its edge. It rested on the exact iron where a father had once decided it was not worth sweeping up. I looked at it there, and I let myself feel the whole distance between that morning and this one. Ember curled at my feet with a sound like coals settling, 6 glyphs dimming to embers as the beast dozed. The legend, asleep on a forge floor, guarding a boy who used to have nothing. I did not need anyone to witness this part. Every climb had been public, credited, roared over. This one was just mine, in the quiet, with no board and no crowd and no verdict to earn. That was the difference. That was the whole of it. I smiled. The same small smile from the first day when a champion swung fire at me and I did not move because only I knew what the broken blade would do. Back then it was a secret. Now it was just peace. Outside the window, far off past the valley's edge, the sky held a color I did not like, a dull red seam low on the horizon where the light should have been clean, a rift front, wide and old, opening along a ridge, no master's territory covered, no one's ground, no one's watch. The kind of tier that had no owner because everyone strong enough had always been busy guarding a name instead. Ember lifted its head. Both of us looked at it a while. Then I looked back at the whole blade on the anvil, sleeping in the dawn light, and I did not reach for it yet. There was time. The coals were warm. Morning was ours. But somewhere out past the ridge, a door was opening that nobody was going to close.